Many of the authors who've appeared on our show have talked about how important their writers' groups are, how they've had a positive impact on their writing.
I myself run a bi-weekly writing group, and it's because of the experiences I've had with other writers who have come to my group, and of course groups that I've gone to, that has actually helped me to complete several of my novels. But perhaps you live in an area where there aren't a lot of choices for writing groups. Maybe you even long for one that's a little bit more tailored to your specific needs. So now you're toying with the idea of starting your own group.
Here with some tips on establishing a writer's group and how to make it successful and lasting is Todd Greenwood. Todd is a writer and also leads the Princeton Writers' Room, a group in existence for 8 years. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you, thank you.
We're pleased to have you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different writing groups out there.
Yep.
So let's start with, how are these formats? What are the types of formats that can be offered within these groups?
Well, I've visited a number of different groups, and certainly the group that I run, what we do is we're sharing work around the room. So we're all peers, we're all writers, we're reading our work, we're reading it aloud to the group, and then the group is commenting on what they heard and where those improvements are. And that's one type of format.
Okay.
Another type of format is actually the format of the group that you run, Keith,
Yep.
which is where people are coming into the room with the express purpose of actually writing in the time period of the group. And that's very effective because there's something about people who are working together on writing that actually creates a concentrated
Energy.
spirit and energy
Yeah.
that you're actually generating stuff that you wouldn't otherwise in that period of time.
I've called it being around like-minded people. I've said it a few times on the show as well. It really is very, very important.
Exactly, but it's not only that, but it's that energy, that concentrated energy. A third type would be where people are talking about writing. They're talking about the craft of writing. They may be sharing books or tips about writing, or they may be sharing books that they love that actually exemplify the kind of writing that that they want to be doing. And then groups do all kinds of mixtures of those, and
Yeah.
that's what you find. Yeah.
Okay, so what would you recommend people that want to start their own group? They have one of those ideas in mind or a little connection thereof. What kind of parameters would you have them work with in organizing, like the time frame, maybe the duration in the meeting?
Yeah, sure.
Any kind of thing like that?
There are no rules, but what we do is we have 2 hours, and sometimes 2 hours seems like it's not enough, but quite honestly, I think that people tune out after 2 hours. So,
It can be a
I
little
think
too
that,
long as well,
it can be too long. So I think, an hour and a half is probably the minimum, 2.5 hours is the max, so, nice is about 2 hours. I would say that, you want to certainly meet in the same place each time. You want to have a comfortable spot where people meet. I know there are groups that just go from one living room to another and round robin, and
Sure.
that works. What we do with the Writers' Room is we're hosted by the Princeton Public Library, and that has advantages and disadvantages. One advantage is, there's free space and it's
Yeah.
there, and we have a ready community of writers. We live in a community of
Yes.
writers, so
Yes.
they come flowing in to the library, and and that's sort of where the disadvantage is, because you can't gauge necessarily
Yeah,
who's
there's hit
gonna
or
show
miss.
up.
Sometimes it's overwhelming. I know you've had times when you didn't have enough chairs in the room, and other times you're waiting for somebody else to come in the door so you can get some help, and it just didn't happen.
Exactly.
No.
So what I was going to say is that one of the things that we're doing during those 2 hours, again, is people are sharing. So it's really the real difficulty is, how do you make sure that you're maximizing the time,
Sure.
that you're giving everyone a chance, and that those people who don't have a chance to read and share have a chance the next time.
Very good points. Now, what makes a good facilitator or leader of these groups?
Oh, just look at me.
Well, we could tell right off the bat, but we would like elaborate slightly for us.
Yeah, I think that a good a good facilitator is someone who is a good listener, but is listening for those for positivity, because that's what we want. I think we want to make sure, and I hate this, if I go to a group and suddenly, half of the time is being expended on one person. So you want to be able to move the group along in a way that, you're really maximizing the time without cutting people off, but on the other hand, knowing that you're not going to be able to get lots of voices in and lots of work in unless, time is really there at your side.
I know, having done it a few times, it becomes important to know that it might not be my turn tonight. And for a new writer, a new person coming into the group, they kind of expect that. So that's something else that you have to do as a leader. Okay, there's a new guy, got to make sure that he gets his, few cents in. What about actually doing critiquing? What kinds of advice would you give? Because I know that's one of the more common, one of the kinds of things people think of when they say what a writing group is.
We've gone through a couple of different, I would say, iterations, different kind of evolution with how to do critiquing. In the beginning, the group was all creative nonfiction. So we were looking at critiquing from the perspective of really that of the emotional truth. We would say, where is the emotional truth in this work? But it was too constraining. First of all, we had people who were knocking on the door who were saying, I'm doing fiction, I'm doing playwriting, I'm doing poetry, I want to come in and I want to be part of this. So we said, great, let's open up the doors and allow everyone in. So then, that then begged the question, well, then how do you do critiquing?
People have different skill sets walking in the door.
So one of the things that I thought made a lot of sense was to ask the writers themselves to provide the focus question. Because the other part of it is every writer is in a different place when they come into that room in terms of what their work is about, where their work is in its completeness and its evolution. And so the best person to really know what it is that they need is the writer, him or herself. So to ask the writer, what is it that you want? What is it that you feel is, the key question?
Right.
What is it that you want to hear?
And it focuses the rest of the group as well, rather than some people working on grammatical issues, some people looking at, sentence structure and other things. If there's one specific question, it really helps the focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have lots more to ask you,
Yeah.
but not enough time. So I
course.
think joining a writers group maybe is the solution.
Yeah,
we certainly appreciate your time and lots of great tips for our viewers.
Thanks so much for coming in, Todd.
You're welcome.